Good afternoon, everybody. We are ready to begin. My name is Chris. I'm with the marketing department here at Penn West, and I wanted to welcome everybody to the 2025 Penn West Women in Business Professional Panel. We do have participants on the webinar and on our live YouTube channel. If there are questions that come about during the presentations, please submit them in the Q&A portion. We will try and get to them as quickly and as soon as possible. Just a couple things, if you could silence all your devices, since we have microphones at different locations, we want to make sure we hear our speakers. And with that said, I will turn it over to Dr. Sandra Trejos, and she will do an introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
I was going to say good morning 3 minutes ago. I should think of good afternoon to everyone. Yes, I'm Dr. Trejos, Professor of Economics. Very pleased to be part of this event led by Jinsei Yang in Edinburgh. And I've been here and looking forward to introducing Dr. Anderson. So this is not the first time that I'm a witness to Dr. Anderson's commitment to extracurricular over and above activities. I was able to contact him for an event with the community, even before he got to campus, I believe, and he said yes. And he keeps reaffirming that commitment. It is with great honor that I introduce Dr. John Anderson. It is with gratitude that I just told him that he makes time to be here, because I'm pretty sure the agenda needs to be moved so that he could be here. It is our president for Pennsylvania Western University, 3 campuses. Hence, the coordination technology, if you're wondering, is like, why so many Qs? We are having this annual Women in Business panel event, once again, led by the efforts of a team of business faculty and staff, led by Dr. Anderson, in an effort to convey that it matters to us. Business, women in business, extracurricular, personal growth. We're not going to be looking at our phone cell phone devices, please. No cell phone devices. Even if you're at home through Zoom, just please, I invite you all to really put the head in the game, because this kind of event is what makes of a university, is what happens in the classroom and what happens outside of the classroom that we don't have time to do. Hence, I promise this will be an hour very well utilized. I look forward to continue cooperation with our president. This is a testimony of how at Pennsylvania Western University, we are committed with the mission and the vision of continued growth. And I repeat, experiential learning, high impact practices that go beyond the classroom. I commend every student, every faculty member, every staff member who is part of this, because this is what makes Penn West great. I cannot insist enough on how grateful we are to the panelists and to others who are not visible right now, but without them, this could not be possible. So with no further delay, let's join me in welcoming our president, Dr. John Anderson.
I'll sit here and join our panelists for just a minute. I've been invited to make a few introductory remarks before the panel. I want to thank all of you students, whether you're here in this room in Clarion or on any of our campuses or online, for taking time to attend. I want to thank Dr. Trejos and her for their work in organizing this event. And I want to welcome all our panelists to this panel and networking event. It is wonderful to have you all here. This event brings 6 accomplished guest speakers, entrepreneurs and industry leaders from Western Pennsylvania, who will share their insights and experiences with us. We are especially proud to welcome a few of our own Penn West alum among them. The discussion today is designed to accomplish 3 key goals. 1, to celebrate the achievements of professional women in our region. 2, to provide students with valuable career readiness skills industry knowledge, and leadership development opportunities. And 3, to highlight the collaboration and strength of our 4 campuses and our commitment to delivering meaningful hybrid experiential learning. Following the panel, I encourage you to take advantage of the networking sessions where career centers across our campuses have been invited to have local employers connect with students and discuss internship opportunities. So I encourage you not to miss that. I want to begin this panel by sharing with you a few thoughts. You as students have the chance to ask a lot of questions about your future. You get a chance to ask deep questions about what you want to do and how you want to do it. I am thankful to you that you have chosen to invest in yourself. These 4 years of an undergraduate degree or a year or two a graduate degree, you have a chance to set aside time from when you could be making money, when you could be making friends and doing a lot of other things to improve who you are so that when you choose to enter the workforce, you will be better prepared to make a difference. Let me encourage you to consider 3 major trends you need to be aware of that as you prepare to enter the workforce, you should study carefully. The first trend is you're going to graduate and enter a market in which economies are shifting quickly. You read in the news today, which I read regularly, you'll hear a lot about tariffs. You'll hear a lot of questions about where goods and services are made, produced, and delivered. Watching that develop over the next number of years will fundamentally shift the opportunities you have when you graduate. Study those changing economies so you'll be prepared to be aware of the opportunities that are ahead. The second major change is a change that's happening in capital markets. Those capital market shifts, you may not even know what a capital market is yet, but I can tell you, as you learn from the business faculty, you will know. Capital markets have to do with where businesses access capital so they can invest in their businesses and hire people and make goods and services and deliver them in markets. There's a significant shift going on in capital markets away from private and public debt into private equity, venture capital funding, and out of public markets. That shift, you need to study it, you need to understand it, because that shift will determine what organizations exist, what businesses are there, and what opportunities you have when you're done. I'd encourage you to put a note that you need to study capital markets and shifts in economies. The third major shift, which is an important one, this is happening more recently. Some of you may know about something called ChatGPT. You ever heard of that? Some of you may have used it on occasion for help with assignments or other things or learning activities. The engines or agents behind ChatGPT and similar AI agents are doing something that is really important to understand in business. I've spent 20 years as a business professor, and these are some of the most significant shifts that I've seen. That AI movement is not only shifting our ability to act, it's shifting the business models that exist. You may think in your mind, I've got this job, I'm preparing for that job, I'm going to fit in this organization this way. What exists today will not exist in the next few years because AI is creating new jobs, new types of jobs, new ways to interact, and new ways to add value. So study the business model of the organizations you want to work for. If you can understand economies, capital markets, and business models, you will be prepared to enter almost any industry and have success within that industry. So as we prepare to hear from these wonderful experts, I invite you to make a commitment to yourself that don't only study the things you're asked to study, ask bigger, broader questions about your future. As you start to integrate the knowledge you have in the classroom with the big questions you ask when you read in current news media, you will be prepared to do something that you will be paid well for. And that is to add value to any table you are invited to sit at. When you're invited to sit across from someone in a job interview or to sit in a business meeting, if you are prepared with the knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences that you can add value to that conversation, you will be rewarded well, and you will have a fantastic professional life. So I just invite you with these opening comments to make a commitment to yourself to learn in and outside of the classroom as part of your university studies. With that brief introduction, I thank again our panelists for taking time to be here, and please join me in welcoming them.
President Anderson for the inspiring remark and the support. I know the other campers cannot see our room, so we actually have the whole full room of the audience here. So please excuse my voice. I still recovering from losing it since last week. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panelists, each of whom brings a wealth of experience and a unique perspective to our discussion today. And before we begin, I'd like to extend a special thank you to our sponsor, Enterprise Mobility, for their generous support in making this event possible. And now let's meet our panelists. And I want to emphasize that the brief introduction I'm about to give barely scratched the surface of what this individual have accomplished. Please wave as I call your name. And also for the audience, hold the applause to the end of the intros. So at the Edinburgh campuses, we had two guests here. We have Courtney Steady. So Courtney is a senior HR business partner at the Erie Insurance Group. Her work includes talent management, performance management, and aligning people strategies. And she's also a Penn West alumni. And the second guest here is Nadia Shabaza Perot. And Nadia is the owner and the founder of the BB Design House and Wanderlust Design Stays. And Nadia is a designer, entrepreneur, and a real estate investor, and passionate about creating intentional and beautiful space. And now let's move on to Clarion campus. And we also have two guests there. So we have Jess Carroll. Please wave your hand. And Jess is the business outreach coordinator for the city of the Franklin at the Franklin Industrial and the Commercial Development Authority. And with a background in marketing and business, Jess is passionate about fostering growth and innovation in her city. And the second guest on Clarion campus is Tracy Becker. And Tracy is the executive director for the Clarion Area Chamber and of the business and industry. Tracy's commitment to the Clarion community is evident in her impactful career with the Clarion Chamber. And now we move on to the California campus. We have the first guest, Morgan Hartley, if you can wave your hand. And Morgan is the supervisor of the employee experience at HICO America. And Morgan is an accomplished HR professional with expertise in talent acquisition, employee experience, and organizational development. And Morgan is also our Penn West alumni. And the second guest on Clarion campus is Jess Morales. And she's from our sponsor, Enterprise Mobility. And she's the group human resource manager at Enterprise Mobility. And Jess began her career with Enterprise in 2005 and has held various management and talent acquisition roles. And she currently makes an impact on Enterprise Mobility employees in Pittsburgh. Okay, so these panelists present a diverse range of the expertise and experience, and I'm confident that their insight will make for a rich and engaging discussion. And please give them a round of applause to welcome them to our campuses. And now it's my pleasure to hand over the microphone to Dr. Stephanie Adam at the California campus to start the panel discussion.
All right, panelists, we're going to get started. I'm going to ask this primarily to you two, and then we will shoot it over to the other campuses. But in, let's say, like 60 seconds or less, could you share a brief, interesting glimpse into your typical workday? And or maybe one unexpected or surprising element of your daily routine.
Can you hear me? Now it's on. Now you can probably hear me. So some of the elements that go into my typical workday is that when I oversee employee experience, it's not only just the experience of the employees, correct? But it's honestly treating our employees like their internal stakeholders and how they value their work. So this concept of motivational fit, how are they motivated to come to work every day? So it could be something low hanging fruit as, hey, we're gonna have employee appreciation month. And we're gonna do all these different events to make sure they feel appreciated, but also investing in them through career succession and career road mapping. But I would say one of the most surprising elements of my workday is how much I've had to learn how to pivot. And I have all these hip pocket projects and all these ideas, and especially feedback from employees. And I think that's the most important thing, is listening to employees, because I may want something and feel strongly about it, but do our employees feel the same way? And so that's essentially why it's important to know the culture of your employees and kind of what motivates them.
Okay, so my favorite part of my job is that there's no typical workday. I think every day is going to be an element of surprise, which keeps me on my toes and keeps my job extremely interesting. But to kind of echo what Morgan just said here, it's about, I oversee the entire employee life cycle as well. So that could be, hey, what do our recruitment efforts look like? So it could be meeting with our hiring managers as to what the need is and what are we actually looking for. And then I get to switch over to our talent development team and say, okay, so now we have all these amazing employees. How are we going to train them? So I get to create curriculum and see how we're going to best deliver that. And then all throughout that process is making sure that we're applying and providing all of the resources to all of our employees to keep them engaged and keep them happy and wanting to stay and build meaningful careers with our organization. The best unexpected thing to the pivot or constantly pivoting, it's like a surprise word, but if there's an employee concern, something that's really special to me and my organization is that we're very, very, very hands-on and we're very responsive. So if there's an employee that's having a tough time or something like that, I can hop in my car and go and meet them and have a one-on-one conversation with them. So that might be one of the most unexpected things, but probably one of the things that I enjoy the most about my position.
Is there maybe one other person at another campus who would like to address this question? It doesn't matter to me.
I'll do one quick additional piece, staying with the HR theme. So the one thing that I would say beyond what Jess and Morgan had shared about the day-to-day people strategy, one of the unique glimpses into my workday is how much I utilize a counseling degree. So with a master's in counseling, it's really interesting how the listening, the empathy skill sets come out in no matter what you're talking about, if it's talent acquisition, compensation, benefits, how much I lean into that degree.
Thank you. I think we might be a little bit frozen, but I hope you all can still hear us. All right, we're just gonna roll with it. Question number 2 is, looking at kind of talking about pivoting, let's talk about pivotal moments or experiences that solidified your decision to pursue the profession that you're in. And then what drives you to continue working in the field that you're in today? So you could take either part of that question, you could take the whole thing. And if one of you has a thought on kind of what solidified your decision to do this.
So one of the things that we get to oversee in this department are awesome mentorship programs. So in our organization, most of our employees start off at the same level, and then you work your way up through performance and desire in which direction you'd like to take that career in. So for me, a pivotal moment in making my decision to come into the human resources side of our business was being a part of that mentorship program. So I'm a first generation college graduate, and most of my family is very blue collar. So I was entering a business world that I knew nothing about. So I was able to benefit a lot from our mentorship program and the mentors that I had throughout my career and how they were able to elevate my performance and get me ready and give me those skill sets that you may not always learn in the classroom, but you need to learn in order to progress your career from that way. So I think seeing how that impacted me personally and my professional career, I wanted to be able to give back and do the same and provide those programs for others. So now it's something that I oversee, and it's definitely, I call it my passion project. It's something that means a lot to me to make sure that we're continuing to develop the next generation of leaders.
I would say that the perspective I want to bring to this question is a pivotal moment for me was even when I was in high school. I was deciding what I wanted to do for my profession. And I mean, when you're 17 years old, you're like, what do I want to do, right? The world is your oyster at that point. And I was actively pursuing theater and performing, was taking singing, dancing, acting, piano lessons, musicianship, all of these classes that were a really great outlet for me. And I think where it hit me was that I love this, but did I want it as a job and a career? No, because it was certainly a hobby of mine. And so when I applied to Cal and started off in human resources and of course, just going through the gen eds, I think what really was a pivotal moment for me is just the connection that I had made from my theater background to HR. And while that does sound a little bit bizarre of how you can make that connection, it's, you know, especially when you're thinking in talent acquisition space, when you're recruiting, how much different is that from being a director of a musical or a play and pretty much interviewing and auditioning candidates for these roles? And especially when I was in the bulk of my recruiting career, it really resonated, like after I graduated from Cal with an HR degree and went on for my master's in HR, that when I was recruiting for interns, for example, just interviewing them, putting them through the process, motivating them along the way, and, you know, really making sure that they are not only a fit for that company and that role, but making sure that it's a fit for them too, because you kind of almost as that recruiter have to say, how can I help you make that next step to get to this point in your career or this particular space that you want to be in, and how can I allow your dreams to kind of come to fruition? So I would say that I've kind of played it on both sides of still, like, everything that I've learned from the theater and that background has really resonated and applied to everything that I do in HR, not even just recruitment, but also when it comes to succession planning and career navigation, is that, you know, just being that person to sit down with folks and ask them, what do you envision? How can I help you get there? Because that's a lot of what the HR partnership is. It's less of this administrative task and more so transformative. And, you know, HR, they'll say, are they your friend? We're not sure. But the way that I look at it as my company is, how can I best equip our employees to reach their goals and get where they want to be?
For the sake of time, I think I'm gonna pass it off for the next couple of questions so that we can make sure that we continue to move through the panel questions. So I believe it's going to Dr. Herr at Clarion. Or if I'm wrong, it's going to Dr. Gibson at Edinburgh.
Can you see me okay?
There you are. Thank you.
Stephanie Ada for moderating the discussion, as well as Morgan and Jess for your valuable responses. I've also got two questions. The first question that I'll be asking to Clarion panelists is, when you're hiring for jobs or internship, what are the top 2 or 3 essential characteristics that you look for beyond technical skills?
Let me take that first, Tracy.
Sure.
Okay. So one of the most important things to me is a positive body language. When you sit down, first impressions mean everything. So I'm going to try to present to you the best version of myself as well, right? Eye contact is super important. That is number 1 to me. If I'm speaking to someone and they're looking elsewhere, instantly that sort of is, I don't want to say off-putting because, but it kind of can be. So my suggestion for this positive body language is great posture, eye contact, and be aware of your facial expressions, because I have a face that says everything. I can't hide it. And sometimes when you come in like this and that's giving away a lot about what you think this job is. And for me, because outreach is such an important part of what I do, you want to be energetic and likable and interested, or at least looking that way, right? So for me, positive body language is number 1. And next, I have energy, and also matching energy. So I am in a really fast-paced environment. We are go, 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 and that's not for everyone, and that's okay. But that's probably the level of energy I'm going to be looking for. But there's also an expectation of being able to match energy. So I'm go, go, go all the time, right? But if I go to a business and they're very cool and they want to explain the process in a very quiet manner, and I'm going like this, and then they're like, you know, so it's also really a skill that you need to develop along the way, right? To be able to match the energy that's given to you. You can still be positive and still be dynamic, but in a lower tone, and meet them where they are so that they can feel most comfortable. Very important to me and in my line of business outreach. Also, authenticity.
goes so far for me, and it's really hard to say how you find that in someone, but I think we know from friendships and life experiences when someone's not being authentic. I would much rather hire someone that they know my expectations, I know their expectations. I don't want everyone to come in and say, oh yeah, I'm ready to go and I'm gonna take this on. If that's not authentically who you are, then that causes a lot of drama on the workplace. And I personally don't deal well with drama. And so I like to see everyone's most authentic version of themselves.
I have a lot of the similar, what you were talking about. Energy is one of the big things. In the chamber world, our days are never the same. Every day is different. You never know what's gonna be in front of you unless you kind of have lined out what you need to get accomplished, but how much of that's gonna get done is always I guess, the big surprise at the end of the day. But when you're coming into the office, energy, and that comes by even what you're wearing. I've interviewed adults and students that come in sweatpants. To me, they're not taking it serious. So I struggle with that. So again, you have to do the research on the business that you're going into. You know, look at their website, look at their Facebook, find out who they are. And then you want to match up with that if you want that job. And again, like Jess said, the energy. If you're sitting across and you're like, I just have to do this interview and get on to the next one, we can sense that. I think the other part is you have to be engaged, ask questions, know what you're getting into. Because if you don't ask the questions and you've been hired, and then they come back and say, well, I didn't know that, you didn't ask the question. So I always want to have people be engaging with questions. And I think in light of what Dr. Anderson had said, what value do you bring to the organization? You know, be able to say, as an intern, as an employee, this is what I can do for you. Because then that shows that you're engaged, that shows that you have the energy, that shows that you want to be in the organization, in the business. So.
Thank you for sharing great, insights. I don't want to misquote, but a lot of our communications are actually done through body language. And we still have a few more minutes to move on to the next questions. I want to hear from other panelists from different campuses. Do we have any volunteer to this question?
Jump in. Definitely body language is a big one, right? I mean, attitude is all how you bring yourself. We all know that we've all studied and heard, it's like a lot of people, I always look for people that are like bringing, I call them their representative, right, at the interview. And then the next day when they show up, they're a totally different person. And you're like, what happened to the person yesterday, right, from the interview? So obviously, again, staying authentic and bringing your true self, because it's going to show. We know all of that. But in my field, I'm not looking for just one particular type of person. So you also have to realize, again, doing your homework, right, and knowing what the position requires and who are they looking for, and being able to actually match that to say, yes, I can fit into this position. Because, maybe I want someone who is a quiet person, and I also want someone who's going to be really energetic. So, I mean, we're in design. So sometimes it's like, ooh, we want to have fun and we want to be, I don't want just like Debbie Downers going to be like, oh no, I don't like to do, or too shy or anything, because we're always with people. So people skills are important, but I'm always looking for different aspects of what someone can bring to the table. So, but if you've done your homework, you present yourself and you actually research, and especially who your interviewer is as well, do that homework, because that's another thing too, because you never know, right? Some people just think, oh, this is just the person in front of me, they're just going to be asking questions, and then I'm going to be working with someone else. Well, maybe this is the person you're going to be interacting with for the rest of, your career, I guess, right? So you kind of have to do your homework beforehand so that you can have a great like interactive conversation during the interview process, and it's not just like shooting questions and you answer and then it's like, oh, okay, well, that was great, you know, so it's not necessarily about what's on paper, but like what really. And I think somebody said it, matching the energy, right? So, and just knowing where you fit in that company.
Great point. Yeah, always do your homework and be prepared. My next question is, can you describe the company culture at your workplace and what aspects do you find most valuable?
I really love the culture of my workplace. It may not be for everybody, but I'm like a team member. And that's, we have a very much a team-based culture where we are. We all do things separately, but working together. And so for me, I'm free to make decisions, but I always take them back to the group. Not because I necessarily need approval, but because you need additional insight. How people interpret things is very different. How you would read something is not going to be the same way you do. So it's so good to where I'm at to be surrounded by people that see the common goal of why we're here. We're here to build Franklin and do community and economic development that supports our residents and our businesses and contribute to their success and be a support system for them. So that's not just one person, right? So the team culture to me is really important. Some people don't like a team culture and that's okay too, but this is why I love it. The most valuable thing for me is transparency. I think in life in general, it's hard to know what the expectation is if you don't know what the expectation is, right? So I love that I'll put something down and my director will write, nope. And I'll say, okay, well, I know that didn't go, so we'll put something else in there. And she's very direct, but that's what I need to be successful in what I do. I like that we don't have to pretend for one another. We're there to lift the whole organization up. And I really value knowing that if I ask a question, I'm going to get honest feedback. So transparency in a team-based culture is where I'm.
In my organization, there's just two of us, so it's not a lot, you know, as far as if you have a larger office. But one of the things we do, I make it, you know, not mandatory, but I think it's engaging, is that once a week, we'll sit down at the table, sometimes with lunch, and we'll just talk about things that we're working on, things that are coming up, and how we're gonna get the things that we need done. But then also, I've been very fortunate that I have a great board of directors, that they themselves want to be engaged. So I have now where I'm passing things from an employee that I can pass off to a board member. So I've been very fortunate in that aspect. So being in a small office, you know, we know everything, you know, I mean, as far as each other and things like that. So I think, like you said, I think as far as being authentic with each other, is very, very important.
Thank you for sharing your responses. Can we hear a few more responses from other panelists from different campuses?
The one thing I would jump in and say, if you asked all 6 of us this question, you might get a little bit different answer from all 6 of us when you talk about what's your company culture. But as students, when you think about interviewing for internships or full-time positions, one great question to ask is, can you showcase an example of how you show your company culture? So really dig into what are those takeaways as opposed to what are some key words that you might describe as your company culture? Because if you have the opportunity to hear that, you'll really get a sense of if that's what you're looking for out of an internship or job.
Have any more volunteers about this question?
I'm happy to jump in here. So what I will say is that company culture, when you think of culture, yes, it's one culture itself, but it also has sub-segments of these subcultures. And my culture is what we describe as an entrepreneurial style of leadership. And what that especially encompasses is that there's not just one way of doing things. We embrace different ways of, hey, if this is the protocol we may have in place and you can get there the same way to the end result in a different way, and maybe it's more strategic and streamlined, then that's great, because a lot of us bring different perspectives. And I think we need to embrace that there's not just one route to get to a resolution of a task, a problem, or a process.
Thank you, Morgan. We still have a few more minutes to move on to the next question. Can I hear one more response from this question?
Sure, I can go.
Thank you, Jess.
Sure. I love talking about our company culture. So I would describe it as fun, competitive, and fast. I mean, we are definitely always moving, but it fosters such a supportive environment, which I think is really important. When you hear the words competitive, sometimes cutthroat comes to mind, but that's not the same environment that we foster. We foster something of support, development. How are we going to help enable and grow our business and grow our company culture? So it's just a really unique and awesome environment to be in. I find that the most valuable because I tend to get distracted a lot. Like, I'm always looking for the next thing. And throughout my career, I've been fortunate enough to work in several different states. I've worked in New Jersey, New York, Florida, Texas, and I'm in Pennsylvania now. And the great thing about our company culture is it exists that way regardless of where you are. So we have a very similar culture in all different parts of the US, making sure that we're fostering a very fun, competitive, and supportive environment.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, company culture is really important, and also what sticks me around this institution is Penn West culture. I thank you for every employees and students. I pass the mic to Dr. Melissa Gibson at Edinburgh University now.
Thank you, Dr. Herb. My question is, our society is rapidly evolving. What's the most significant emerging trend you're seeing? And how are you and your company preparing for the potential impact of AI skills in your workplace? And I'm going to start here at Edinburgh campus.
Hi. So my field is getting quite interesting with AI, and I've had so many different conversations, and actually I think just yesterday or the day before, and I think I see her in this room. I just saw of the person that I was talking to, Linda Sivison from the Athena Group, and we were kind of getting into this because every convention now that I've gone to, AI is being brought up, right? I'm sure all of you as students, right, you're very savvy with Instagram, TikTok, and everything else, and everything on there. That is my competition right now. It is not even like physical, brick and mortar firms, studios out there anymore. It is literally AI. Because if I post something, I do a project, we take photos, I post it, everything, right? And I always say clicks and likes don't pay my bills, right? But it's really that, right? Because for some people, that's what it does. It does pay the bills. So a lot of people now are not even interior designers, and they're putting out work out there that you all see, and then you click and you like it, right? And it's because you like the picture, but I'll look at it and be like, what the hell? It's like, why is the stove like in the cabinet? Like, it doesn't even make sense. But because to the trade, I know what to look for. But to the average person out there, it's just if it's a pretty picture, that's what I'm using. So everybody's doing it. ChatGPT was brought up. I call it my boyfriend. I just found out I can name it. So I'm trying to think really hard of what this name's going to be, because I use it on a daily basis now, even in my, just day to day answering clients' emails, I will type up a whole thing and then I look at it and I'm like, I don't know about this, copy and paste ChatGPT. Great. It's helping me be more concise, be more productive, right? So there's so many different ways, pros and cons, obviously. But the minute I heard AI was coming out, I mean, again, I love, I'm authenticity, I love old things like vintage, so I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose all that because it's not coming from up here. It's just being generated on the computer, right? And the whole point, especially for myself, people are hiring me because they want me to bring my different perspective to their spaces, right? To be able to design a well-functional and aesthetically pleasing, space. So now if a computer can do that and people are gonna like it and go with it, that's who I'm trying to so what else can I bring to the table now, right? Or how can I incorporate myself with AI and present myself to the client and say, okay, now we can do both, right? You can have both. You can have the human element and you can also have AI. So for me, it's rapidly changing because every single time, as I said, I'm constantly, everything is about how can we incorporate AI in our day-to-day, every aspect really of our job. So I am always trying to keep up on it and know how can it help me? I mean, marketing wise, design what, anything at all, because I do not want to be, kind of like the last to know or, I don't know, be a dinosaur, right? And die off and everybody else is moving forward because they were able to adapt and still continue education right now. That's what it is. I'm always, it never stop learning, and we have to be able to adapt. So if you say, I don't like it, I'm not gonna use it, well, look at how the world is moving, right? So we gotta be able to stay still with the trends. This is not a trend that is obviously gonna be dying off. So therefore, we need to be able to adapt, so.
I'll give the insurance industry perspective. So Erie Insurance is not a tech company, if you didn't know that, but we have been using AI tools for the past few years, and our plan is to continue to integrate them or we fall behind. Just because we're not a tech company doesn't mean that customers and employees don't expect the same tools and benefits that AI brings. So the one thing that I would think about as students, as you sit here today, you do not have to be a data scientist or computer programming to enter the world and feel prepared for AI. The one thing that I would think about is how are you learning to not only absorb and use AI tools, but then also communicate that data to others. So when you think about those communication skills that you're gaining in those classes, sure, you might get your data easily or quicker in the future, but it's all about how you're using it and how you're communicating that to your constituents. So that's not just the insurance industry. No matter what industry you're in, you can use that tool. The one thing that I would add, Erie Insurance specific, and it's not unique to us, we have a large population. We have 7,000 employees. We likely won't need those 7,000 people doing the same jobs they're doing today as we see more AI integration in our day. So one of the things that we're doing is upskilling, reskilling, taking a look at what people do on the day-to-day today and say, how can that look differently as we integrate more AI into our workforce?
The next question. Our next question is for every panelist. We'll start with California. Building a strong professional portfolio is crucial. What advice would you give to someone just starting out on how to effectively showcase their skills and experience?
That's a lot of pressure, right? I just want to acknowledge that. Because when you're trying to build up your experience, of course, the first things you're going to seek out are probably internship opportunities, which depending on your field and area of study, either there's a lot and it's overwhelming, or that it's very niche and there's very few. So I would say that if you're just starting out of building out your resume in that perspective of showcasing skills and experiences, it can come from just beyond internship experience. It can come from job experience as well. As somebody who worked their way through college to finance their education and ensure that I was able to find ways to also integrate that into my career now. I had an internship that was more HR geared, but I've also had past experiences that were transferable skills. And especially when I'm looking at resumes that may not have explicit business experience or corporate office, I look at transferable skills. So even if you were, say, in retail, okay, you're working with customers, you're making connections, you're being helpful and working through maybe some problems. What if a customer comes up to you, or even if you're just counting stock, whatever you might be doing, don't diminish what you've already experienced in your life and say that, well, I can't put that on a resume. I mean, I've had candidates put babysitting on their resume. I would say that if you can babysit, if you can take care of young children and keep them fed, alive, happy, I mean, look at that. That's conflict resolution, damage control, if you really think about it. So please don't diminish anything that you might have now to put on your resume, because I would say that the right employers or recruiters are gonna see that and read through it almost between the lines versus, oh, well, they don't have experience on Microsoft Outlook. Oh, have they typed up an email? Because they probably assume, okay, this generation is very technologically savvy. So all they want to see is if you have, drive and especially motivation for what you're doing. And if you can hold a career and go to school or have that be a work study or be in different clubs and organizations, absolutely get involved, because there's a lot that goes to clubs and organizations as well. So don't diminish that either, whether you hold a membership position or a position on the executive board. I think that also comes with its own idea of, you have to plan and you have to have meetings and you have to talk and communicate. So that will all showcase your skills, even if you don't have specific working experience in a particular field. So don't diminish your value.
I mean, I would agree, and I would echo some of the same sentiments, but to me, the most important thing is going to be communication. So then you can have all of these experience, and I agree, I also financed my way through school, so I didn't have all of the time to do some internships in my field were unpaid, so I had to work. So I had a ton of different unique experiences on my resume when I graduated, but also the clubs and organizations. If you hold a leadership role, if you played a sport, there's so many things that you can contribute to your experiences from an athletic perspective. But the challenge is going to be up to y'all, and how do you communicate that skill set, right? So the best thing and the best advice that I could give you from beyond building the strong portfolio is then how are you going to communicate those experiences and make them relevant to the position that you're seeking. So for example, you want to look and do your research. A lot of us have been talking about do your research and make sure that you come in prepared. If you were to look at our website, we know the 6 core competencies that we're going to look for and that we're going to ask you about doing your interview. So that I would challenge you to start looking at some of your experiences and how does that relate to the position that you're interviewing for. So if you know that you need some kind of persuasive ability, or I need to prove that I have leadership skills or very strong work ethic, what on my resume speaks to that? And I think that that's the way that you can start preparing yourself today to be ready for that interview. And if you start thinking about the industries and the positions that you're seeking, and you're like, hey, I might need a little bit more leadership, or I might need a little bit more this, then there's no time like the present to start seeking out opportunities in order to do so.
Thank you. Clarion?
Want to continue to echo what's been said, but really great points have been made, and I wrote on mine. And to the first 2 speakers, life experience is so important, right? I'm a marketing person. My background is in marketing. And so when I have an experience, I always take away a piece. How can I market myself now differently, having had this interaction, whatever that looks like? Volunteer opportunities are a really great way to A, dive into your community, B, find out the inner workings of how people behave. And sometimes human behavior and being able to assess and recognize certain traits in people could be your biggest asset. You're going to find out a lot of things when you're volunteering and just spending time together, and who's the doer, who's not doing it. And so when you get in there in the nitty gritty, I think it's really beneficial. And then as you're marketing yourself for the position that you want to take, you turn those experiences into your assets, right? So your skill set might be more than your work experience, but that's okay, because that's what I in particular am looking for. And that's how I've always approached a job myself.
I agree, as far as volunteering, because if I see that you're volunteering in a local nonprofit group or a local for-profit group, a lot of times we know who those leaders are, that we can actually reach out to them and say, when they were volunteering for you, what were they like? So we're able to get more information that you may not bring across in the interview process. So I'm always looking at, you know, if you're really engaged in your community and care, then I know that we want you as part of our team member.
And that's plus and minuses, not to piggyback on Tracy, but if you're going to a volunteer opportunity and not giving the best version of yourself, it's likely to come out.
Mhm.
So if you sign up to something, you're committed, right? So commit to it. To Tracy's point, and a lot of us live in small communities where you can easily pick up the phone and say, how did that work out?
Mhm.
So your experience on multi-levels of volunteering is really important. That was a great point.
Thank you. Edinburgh?
I'll answer quickly in the terms of the logistics portfolio, knowing that Nadia might have a different answer, but thinking about how you represent your portfolio. So LinkedIn is not going away. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, that's a great way to represent all of the information that you've gathered over the years. And then the other piece that I would say is use your career center. We talked about how do you represent all of this great experience that you've had. Your portfolio could be your resume. So make sure you're utilizing your resources on campus.
Yeah, I guess summarizing what all the ladies said, I mean, all of those skill sets, you know, all of these different elements to be able to put together your portfolio. I think probably, you know, coming from my world, everyone is expecting that, you know, it has to be this like beautiful portfolio. You've got to have like these projects that you've had to work on and so on and so on. That's all great. But I always go back again. I think, you know, one of the questions was like, what are the skills that we're always looking for in the people that we're hiring? Those two questions kind of combine together on how you're also putting your portfolio, right? So for me, there's three big key things that I live by, like in any aspect of my life, and that is communication, honesty, and respect, right? So I want to see that in my candidates, right? So, and the people that I'm working with, because that's what I'm going to bring to the table, and I want the same as well. So portfolios to me, I'm like, you know, I've hired people who never did interior design, but they can learn how to be, right? It's all about like, are you able to learn and be able to actually apply yourself in that world? Many famous designers right now did not go to and get a technical school to be interior designers, but then you see them on TV, HGTV, and they're all famous and making money. It's all, again, different skill sets. I'm an entrepreneur first and foremost, right? So I always take it back again to when I was doing, my major, hospitality management, right? So marketing and sales, that's what I did. And then I took a wholly different like turn and went into pharmaceutical sales. And someone came to me and said, hey, you can do pharmaceutical sales. And I said, I did not go to school for 10 years to be a doctor. How the hell am I going to be speaking in front of, you know, doctors? And they were like, it's sales. It's marketing. So if you know that, you can then apply it in that world. You can learn all the medical stuff and be able to, you know, present yourself in a room as if you know what you're talking about. And when I started, I was like, I shouldn't be telling you how to do your job. I didn't go to school for that. But the confidence came again in the fact that I took the time to learn, right, educate myself and know what I was talking about. And at least I was confident in that and then be able to have those kind of conversations. So when you're putting together, it's not so much like so many people stressed out about making sure that like, you know, what you're presenting, right, your portfolio is like perfect. It does not have to be, you know, because again, we're looking for so much more in that. So be authentic, be yourself, and be unique as well. I look for people that like can color outside the lines. Like that's what I want. Right? But there's certain aspects of my job where I need the person that's going to stay in the box, right? Because and that's great. But most of the time I need people, I need a chameleon, I need someone that can adapt easily. So showcase that in your portfolio that you can do many things instead of just one thing. So again, you're competing with so many people, like everyone in this room, if you're all coming for that one job, how do you stand out, right? So that you're not just like bringing what a copy and paste of what everyone else is, because everyone else is gonna be presenting that in their portfolio. So what else can you put in there that's gonna really make you stand out from the rest of the group?
Thank you for all that amazing advice. Chris, do we have questions from our online audience?
We have not received questions from the online audience.
Then let's open it up to the audiences across the 3 campuses. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question of our panelists?
When you were talking about writing a resume or portfolio, you mentioned that you can describe to like an employer wanting to learn from an opportunity, but also wanting to put yourself out there and show your value. How do you do that at the same time? How do you ask or say that you want to learn from this experience while showing that you still have enough to be a good candidate?
Can I try first? Yeah, go ahead.
So the question is, I'm gonna try to restate it. How can you showcase your interest in learning more along with coupled, here's what I learned from this experience, all within a written resume? So one of the things, if you ever practice interviewing, there's the STAR technique and it stands for situation, task, action, result. That R, the results, the reflection, that's really what you learn. So if on your resume, you talk about a part-time job or an internship, if you focus on what you learned, the value you were able to bring to that specific scenario, I see that on your resume, and then Anna, we could have a further conversation of, I see you did this and this is the value and what you learned. How might you apply it at Erie Insurance for this specific job? So you can't necessarily connect it to every single job that you're applying to, but if you do a good job representing what you learned and what you reflected on, chances are you're going to be able to answer that question in an interview in a different scenario.
Thank you.
Good question.
Any other questions at Edinburgh?
We do have a question here from California campus.
Okay, go ahead, California. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Riccardi, and my question would be, when you are starting out like a new career, what advice would you have for that adjustment process when you're in a new place, starting out, maybe in a career path that you're not originally familiar with, and just kind of how to be successful when you're starting out in that new place?
Oh, I can take this one. You're right. It's a lot to make that transition into a new company. And I think that when we have been looking at our onboarding, you know, you can categorize it as 30, 60, 90 days, or even 100 days of what the expectation is for somebody to be at certain points in their early career within that space. I would say that my goal is for our employees on day one is to at least, you know, at least have an idea of where the bathroom is. And that's like purely a joke, but the expectation is we've hired you in already and trusting you that you're more than qualified. You don't need to prove yourself more to me. You've proved yourself in the interview process. So now those first 30 days is going to be you getting acclimated with the culture and the schedule of work, getting accustomed to the employees, getting yourself out there, making introductions and feeling comfortable. Because I would say I wouldn't expect everybody to know the job instantly the day they get there. We can't have that expectation because it does take time. I would say anytime I've started in a new role or a new company, it takes about 8 or 9 months for me to really be like, aha, like I have that aha moment of like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what is expected of me. But I think we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get things immediately. But I think that any good company, noticing somebody starting into the company new, or even a promotion into a new role, is that you're going to have these moments of, what am I doing? And like the imposter syndrome sets in, I'm not doing enough. But trust me, just getting acclimated to the environment and the organization and the culture, and just, you know, having those informal conversations with employees, because, you know, a majority of that onboarding experience is more formalized, but a lot of it happens informally. So it's going to be, you know, you may be going out to lunch with your different colleagues, or stopping by to their office saying, hey, I have a question, or like, hey, I noticed maybe you graduated from this school, or just trying to make those connections. And really just rapport building is probably going to be the main focus for those first probably 100 days in the company. And then, of course, learning the role and developing your routine, which should come naturally with all of that, both formal structure and informal structure.
I would just add a few things. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I think everyone, when they're new, they're just shy about it. And to your point, think that you're supposed to know the position. I don't think any good manager or leader is going to expect you to know all the ins and outs. But sometimes we don't know what you don't know. So ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's how you're going to learn. And that's how you're going to start building the confidence. And then after you're with the company for, 30 days or so, I think mentorship is so important. So if you're in an environment that fosters that and has those relationships, then put yourself out there and find somebody whose maybe career you aspire to participate in, or maybe department that you would maybe be interested in one day, and just ask some questions, and then you'll start to see these mentorships start happening naturally, and you could see how pivotal those could be for your careers. So I think that's really important to help with the culture and kind of fitting in.
Thanks, Jessica.
We're gonna go to the Clarion campus next, and then we'll go back and pick up any online questions. So anyone at Clarion who has a question?
You can do it. They need one question for Clarion or a comment.
I think I was gonna take off the last question that they were talking about. When I started in my career, my profession, when I was in college, I went for accounting business administration. I was going to work for the state in the treasurer's office because I had a family member that was working there. And I remember him coming to me saying, "You don't want to do this because I don't see you being in a room with no windows." And I'm like, okay. So at the time, I was then working at a grocery store as a store front end manager and things. And the job came open at the chamber for a secretary. And my mom had said, "I think you should apply for this." And my response to her was, "What is a chamber?" And I didn't know. So we did start having computers back then, but we, started doing the research as far as I wanted to find out what the chamber is about. I'm like, I don't think that's what I want to do, but to make my mom happy, I'll go for the interview and everything. And I remember, going through the whole, thing, and I'm like, and they're like, they wanted a secretary, this is what they wanted to do. And I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. And they're like, we're gonna do a test. We're gonna have you do this. And I had to go into another room, go through a test where I had to type a letter to a business owner that we couldn't meet with them the following week and everything, where today it's now email, it's so much easier. And I had to do an Excel spreadsheet, and I had to do something else. And I came out, gave them all the paperwork, and then I walked out. My interview was over. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I got called that they were gonna hire me to be their secretary. And I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, I was literally a fish out of water. And I know when people will say to me, "We want to work for a chamber, we want to be a chamber director," which is great. It's a lot of fun. There was not schooling for that, but there is now. And what I would say is do accounting, do administration, but then also I think anybody in any field could lead a chamber and do great things. So you may go to school thinking you're gonna be this. It's okay to change. And I'm glad I did. And I've been in this profession now for 39 years. So.
Can I add to that? Yes, I want to add to that too, because I would say, the advice that I would, if I was to go back and give myself, the younger me, right, and for all of you, is number one, when you have that job, right, breathe, take it all in, like relax, right, and let the chase be natural. So what I mean is you got to be able to enjoy, become a sponge. So asking question, networking, right? So those are the things that you should be worried about, learning the culture, like all of these any information that is going to be pertinent to not only your position, but your future, but who also you are as a person is what you should be trying to concentrate. Because again, as we said, you had the skills, you got the job, great, now you're here. Now what? But the stress, like when I look back, I was chasing, right? So that it was always about the next thing. that I didn't even get to enjoy what I was doing. So, because again, as we just all said, we were trying to say, you know, be a chameleon, learn different skills so that, because that's one job that you thought that, hey, I'm going to school for this. Definitely for me, I've taken all kinds of different routes, right, from where I went. And now I'm coming back to my, what I call home, right, going back to my base. But sometimes it's a journey. It takes a little while to get there. You may have, you know, I mean, I worked for 3 different pharmaceutical companies, right? My ex worked for 7 different companies. So at this time, being together and having to switch, and you always constantly have to be like learning new things, learning, you know, the new company or things. And then it was like, okay, well, if this fails, what else can I do? You know, I wasn't an athlete. Same thing. It was, you know, I had so many friends who were like, oh, I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to be a basketball player. You know, I had one of my good friends who that's all he wanted to do. And I said, well, what happens? What happens if I busted my knee, right? So I had to sit out for a year. So I didn't think maybe it was like soccer or lacrosse was going to be my future. What else can I do, right? So things change, life happens, right? But I think the most of it is just to like breathe and just don't take it so seriously. I mean, it's gonna be okay. Things will work out, and just learn how to pivot. Like, if anything, really, it's just breathe, relax, and enjoy the journey. Because if you don't, you're gonna look back and you're gonna say, you got this great resume and you've done a million things, and everyone's like, oh my God, you're so amazing. And you're totally unhappy. And there's a reason why, because you did not enjoy any of it while you were going through it. So relax.
Chris, can you tell us the online questions?
I can do that for you. Thank you. The first one is, how do you regroup after not receiving a job offer?
Relax. Again, you know, I mean, learn, see what you can get from it. I always like go back and like replay it all in my head, right? But again, there's also things that you don't know, because they're, you know, I mean, I've always been a person, I would follow up and ask, and I've done this too, and I love it when people like send me an email back and they're like, oh, you know, I didn't get the job, like, what could I have done? Like, you know, so ask questions, because you don't know. So a lot of us, it's like, if we don't ask questions and you don't go back to that interviewer and ask, because it could have been something that you had no idea. Maybe the company changed, you know, goals, or, you know, and they were supposed to hire, and then they decided, okay, we're not hiring, but yet you're sitting at home stressing about it, right? Thinking it's all you. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you. So ask the questions to find out the whys, right? So that you can then learn from that and then take it on to the next interview. There's always more interviews out there.
And I would add, we know it's exhausting. It's okay to say searching for a job, searching for a new job is exhausting.
It's a job.
One of the things, if you're somebody who likes homework, Mel Robbins has a book out called Let Them Theory, and it's all about using your energy for you, what you can control, as opposed to worrying about, why didn't they hire me? Why didn't I do well in the interview? So thinking about what you can control, your energy, put that towards. And then the other thing, as recruiters, we're looking for the right person for the right job at the right time. Just because you don't get that position doesn't mean it's the wrong company. It just might mean it's a different time or a different position that you might be seeking.
Another question, Chris?
Yes. How are you able to show experience in a resume or a job interview when you don't have any, or you have very little experience?
I think that goes back to what we were speaking about earlier. You have to think about what can be experienced. You take a creative approach to it. Sometimes we're only thinking about, oh, this wasn't the formal internship or this formal job, so I have nothing to put on there. I mean, think about all of your experiences. When I went to university, we had to do an entire business case project for my senior year. Like, could that be something that you put on your resume, and your part that you took in that? Did you do anything over the summer? Did you participate in any college activities? Did you start a fundraiser? Did you volunteer? So I think it's really taking a deep dive into what you do on a day-to-day basis and finding those experiences. Because once you do that, you'd be surprised as to how many skill sets you really do have to offer and how you can communicate that back to the employer that you're interviewing with. So just because it may not seem in your head as this formal experience and I have nothing, I don't think that that's always the case. And if you're applying for entry-level positions, also know that we're cognizant of that. And I don't expect you to have 10 years of experience if you're applying for an entry-level position. So we're looking for the right things. Just make sure that you can communicate all that you've learned and done.
Chris, do you want to give us that last question?
Excuse me, Melissa?
Oh, yes.
Jess in Clarion wants to say something about it, if you don't mind.
Yes. So sorry, I'll keep mine short and sweet. But I just want to let you all know that there is a component of eagerness and willingness to learn. And when I feel like somebody is really motivated to do that, some of that can even counterbalance those experiences, right? If you're coming in an entry level, we want to see your willingness to learn things. We want to be able to help teach you our culture and our way of doing things. And hopefully, ultimately, we'd all like you to have a career with us, not just a job. And in order to do that, you have to learn those things. So if you're eager and willing to learn, and you, going back to our original thing, have that positive body language and that energy, that's what shows your willingness, is your level of energy. So I don't think we should also disregard that.
Follow-up question. Yes, we have a follow-up question at Clarion, excuse us. Please go ahead.
Hen Carnes, Clarion County Economic Development. Can you please elaborate on the importance of building social capital along with skill and showcasing your resume as a clean, polished? What's the balance and how important it is, especially for young, new students starting up, having that social capital and working on building that? Do you see that of any value, and can you operate on that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I think when I look at the resume, I mean, again, I'm looking at, as far as, what they're involved in, and as far as like their social skills and things like that. I mean, I guess every organization treats it differently, as when they're looking at it. But again, we want the person, the employee, if it's a student or an adult employee, as far as being eager and wanting to be out there and be able that whenever we're doing events, that they're able to interact with the crowds, helping out with registration, if it's a small group or if it's a large group. So I don't know if we put a lot of attention to that aspect of it. I guess I'm looking at more like, we were talking earlier, I think eagerness is probably more than anything. I look at even my board, they're eager to do things. So I'm willing to give them things to do.
I will say, Hind, that I think that social capital is important. I think in our professions as well, right? Because if you're going to train people to go business to business and experience to experience, no two businesses are alike. And so that social component is really important, because I need to know that you're going to be able to not only socialize in this sort of facility and an event, but that you can go out and talk to just about anybody, and relatability. And the more you socialize and the more you're involved, the more that builds. That isn't something that's taught, that's experienced. So to me, looking at it, I do think social situations are hugely important. And to me, that's a good selling point for sure.
I know, with the many different jobs that I've done, or like the careers that I've had, definitely the social aspect of things, and I think again goes back again, be a sponge, be a chameleon, and just learn new skills. I remember, again, being in corporate business meetings, my boss was like, what sports did you play? And I was like, I'm a soccer player, lacrosse, it's like all these running sports. at track, and then he's like, you need to learn how to golf. And I was like, oh my God, that's so boring. I was like, I cannot, and it was like, no, a lot of business deals happen on the golf course. So you have to be able to like learn how to golf. It's just, or if you don't drink, but yet you have to take your client over to a bar, it was all about always like learning what my clients liked, right? So how they wanted to like socialize and then meet them there, because I knew that that's where they would be a little bit more comfortable, right? And then I could do my self pitch and it doesn't seem like a self pitch because we're all having fun, right? And they're relaxed. So I think just being able to adapt, and again, just put yourself in don't be afraid to put yourself in different environments. So.
Okay, so I think everybody's so excited attending this event. I have a lot of great questions, and I know I had a network session. But before we end in the panel discussion, we want to hand over the microphone to our Associate Dean Juanice Vega at the Clarion campus to give us the closing remark. And after that, our Career Center, Rhonda, will give us instruction on how to networking with our employee attending the event.
In the right spot. All right, Sandra gave me instructions before I. So thank you all. I really just wanted to take a few minutes. I'm our Associate Dean of Science, Technology, and Business on the Clarion campus, but I work across all 3 campuses. I just wanted to thank a lot of people. I wanted to thank our great faculty at all 3 campuses for organizing this, all of our presenters and panelists today at all 3 campuses. Wanted to also thank our businesses who will be here for the networking event. And especially I wanted to thank all the students who participated. I know we have, I think, Rhonda told me we have about 100 students across all 3 campuses. That's great. It's a great turnout for this event. And I just want to recognize too, we do have a lot of young men here today. Even though this event was called Women in Business, I think it's great. I love it anytime we see young men come out to these events. Those of you who are here, this really wasn't specific to women in business. Everything that I heard here today applies to anyone who's going to be working. The common themes were, communication, learn how to really showcase yourself, whether you've had employment, whether you volunteered, anything that you've done, there's a way that you can pull those experiences in to help you land that first job that you really want. Never stop learning. I can tell you, you never will. As long as you're working and involved and engaged, you will be learning. Imposter syndrome, I forget who mentioned that. That's a real thing. Don't let it psych you out. You can overcome it. Even if you're not comfortable in what you're doing, you can learn that. You can learn how to do it. Find great mentors. Stay in touch with your faculty members. They'll really be able to help you as you go out and look for that first job. I encourage all of you really utilize this next, I think it's about 45 minutes that we have for the networking session. Get to know some of the people there, learn what they do in their organizations, and ask questions all the time. But thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda Gifford, who will kind of explain the layout of the networking.
I was just thinking, one more thing we learned from Tracy is listen to your mother, right? Won't steer you wrong. Dr. Trejos caught up on that right away. My name is Rhonda. I'm from the California campus. And one more thing I want to encourage all of you to do, if you have not yet done it, meet your career coach in your campus career center. Online students, every campus, you have a career coach specific to your major. Find out who that is. You can find that out on Handshake or by contacting your career center and just asking. Meet that person. They are there to help you. If you're nervous, help you make the most of your resume. I heard that question, great question. What do I do if I don't have experience? Your career coach can help you with that. Learning how to network, because we have a colleague that says if you're, if you're either networking or you're not working. So it's that important, right? Having said that, I want to encourage all of you to attend the networking event on your campus. There are lovely people, many of them who have paid internships and as well as jobs. So don't miss this opportunity to connect with them. Employers, you have stickers, or you will, once you get to your table in the networking session, that you can give to each student with whom you network. Students who are online, you can connect with these employers on Handshake. So please do that. You'll see the links to these employers right on the Handshake event page. Students who are here in person, I encourage you, if you didn't pick up one of these networking cards when you checked in, do so now. And if you're nervous, you're not sure what to ask, this will tell you questions that you can ask the employers at the networking event. Talk to one employer. Stretch out of your comfort zone. Get a sticker, at least one sticker on the back of your card, put your name on it and your email, very important, and turn it in at the registration area. And you will be eligible for a number of $100 Amazon gift cards, okay? So I encourage you. Plus, there's great food. If you don't eat the stuffed mushrooms, we're making Dr. Anderson take them home. So please visit the networking reception. Don't be afraid to eat as well. Thank you all for coming, and thanks for investing in your future.
Before, 1 second, Chris, can you get a mic? So before we move on to the networking session, please give a round of applause to our panelists. And the other campus doing.
Recognizing people.
I'm here to give a big round of applause to the person.
Thank you so much.